Sloane Carter had always known her family wasn't perfect, but she never expected the truth to slap her so hard on her sister's wedding day. The moment she stepped into the grand ballroom, crystal chandeliers glittering above, a string quartet filling the air with soft music, she felt something wasn't right. The smiles around her were polished, polite, and hollow. When she reached the seating chart, her heart gave a painful twist. Her name wasn't listed near her parents, her sister, or even her cousins. A wedding planner with a too bright grin handed her a card that read, Table 19. Coat room. Her throat tightened as she whispered, "This must be a mistake." The planner's smile faltered for a second. "I'm sorry, Miss Carter, that's what's written here." Sloane stared at her, searching for any hint of kindness or humor, but there was none. "Outside the hall," she repeated, her voice trembling despite her effort to sound calm. "My entire family is in there." The planner gave a nervous laugh. "I understand, but those are the final arrangements." Sloane let out a dry, bitter laugh. "Final arrangements," she echoed. The phrase felt like something you'd say at a funeral. And in a way it was. A quiet funeral for the last bit of belonging she had left. Inside the ballroom, laughter rose like music. Her mother's, her father's, and Olivia's above all. Sloane caught sight of them near the head table, surrounded by people glowing under the soft gold lights. Her sister Olivia looked radiant in her white satin gown, curls pinned high, a smile that could light a room. Her mother fussed over her dress, while her father spoke proudly with guests. For a second, Sloane thought she might walk over, join them, pretend everything was fine. But then Olivia turned, caught her eye and smiled, not kindly, not warmly, but with a smirk that said, "You don't belong here." Sloane's heels clicked against the marble as she forced herself forward. "Mom," she said, keeping her tone even, "can I talk to you for a second?" Mrs. Carter barely looked up. "Sweetheart, can't you see we're busy? The photographer's coming." "It'll only take a moment," Sloane insisted. Olivia folded her arms, the diamonds on her wrist glinting. "Is this about your seat?" she asked sweetly. "Oh, Sloane, I told the planner to fix that. You know how chaotic weddings can be." Sloane's jaw tightened. "Chaotic? I'm sitting outside the ballroom." Her mother sighed, the sound full of annoyance. "Please don't start. It's Olivia's day. Just be grateful you're here." "Grateful," Sloane repeated under her breath, the words sharp and bitter. Her father joined them, adjusting his cufflinks and avoiding her eyes. "It's just a seating issue," he said quietly. "Don't ruin the mood." Sloane stared at him, her chest tightening. She had been invisible all her life. Quiet, polite, easy to overlook. But this wasn't a mistake. This was intentional. "Right," she said finally, forcing a thin smile. "Wouldn't want to ruin anything." She turned before her voice could shake, walking past the laughter, the flash of cameras, and the sound of champagne glasses clinking. For the first time she saw the truth. Her family never truly saw her at all. Sloane stepped out of the ballroom and into the quiet hallway, the laughter behind her fading into a distant hum. She stood there for a moment, staring at the elegant white place card with her name written in gold ink. Sloane Carter, Table 19. The letters seemed to mock her. She thought about crumpling it, throwing it away, but instead she placed it gently on a nearby tray. "Keep your table," she whispered under her breath. "I'm done begging for a seat." Her heels clicked softly against the marble as she walked farther down the corridor, the weight in her chest growing heavier with every step. She leaned against the wall, eyes closed, trying to steady her breathing. From inside, she could still hear the faint sound of Olivia's laughter, bright, confident, and effortless, the kind that made people adore her. Sloane remembered being younger, always compared to her perfect sister. Olivia was the golden one, the achiever, the one their mother called our pride. Sloane had been the quiet one, the responsible one, the background character in her own family's story. But tonight, being shoved into the hallway wasn't just an accident. It was a message. One that said, "You don't matter." "Sloane!" A voice called softly from behind her. She turned to see Daniel Blake, one of Olivia's old college friends, standing with a glass of champagne in his hand. He looked surprised to find her alone. "Hey," he said with a small, cautious smile. "Why are you out here? They've got half the city's best food inside." Sloane forced a chuckle. "Apparently my seat's out here, with the coats." Daniel frowned, eyes narrowing in disbelief. "You're joking." "I wish I was," she said flatly. He hesitated, then lowered his voice. "That's cruel. Even for them." Sloane gave a short shrug. "It's nothing new, Daniel. It's just who they are." Daniel studied her for a moment, as if seeing her differently. "You always were the quiet one," he said gently. "I thought that was by choice." Sloane looked down, smiling faintly. "No, that's just the role I was given." She looked up again, through the glass doors into the ballroom, where Olivia was laughing among friends. Their mother stood nearby, glowing with pride, while their father raised his glass in a toast. It was the picture of a perfect family, without her in it. "They always treat you like this?" Daniel asked quietly. Sloane's laugh was soft and tired. "Pretty much my whole life. You know," Daniel said, "I used to think you didn't care about their approval." Sloane looked at him with a sad smile. "Oh, I cared. I just stopped showing it." He nodded slowly, understanding more than she expected him to. "They'll regret this someday," he murmured. Sloane turned her gaze toward the ballroom doors again. "Maybe," she said. "Or maybe I'll finally stop waiting for that day." The quiet truth in her words hung between them like a fragile thread. Daniel opened his mouth to say something more, but footsteps echoed down the hallway, sharp and purposeful. Sloane's spine straightened. She didn't need to turn around to know who it was. "Sloane," came the familiar clipped tone. Mrs. Carter approached, her posture perfect, her face smooth with practiced grace. "There you are," she said briskly. "Everyone's been asking where you disappeared to." Sloane turned slowly, her expression calm but guarded. "I didn't disappear. I was seated out here." Her mother's eyes flickered, betraying a hint of discomfort before she masked it with a smile. "Oh, don't be dramatic. You know how seating charts can get mixed up." "Mixed up," Sloane said, her voice sharper now. "Mom, I'm next to the coat rack." Mrs. Carter's smile faltered. "Sweetheart, please. This isn't the time." "The time," Sloane repeated quietly. "You mean the time to ask why my own family doesn't want me at the table?" Her mother sighed, eyes darting toward Daniel, clearly embarrassed. "Can we not do this in front of people?" "There's barely anyone here," Sloane said. "That's the point." The words hung heavy in the air. Daniel stepped back slightly, sensing he was witnessing something deeply private. Mrs. Carter's tone softened, but it carried the same condescension it always had. "Sloane, your sister's wedding is stressful enough. Don't create unnecessary drama." Sloane's chest tightened. "You really think I'm the one creating drama?" she asked quietly. Mrs. Carter crossed her arms. "You're overreacting. Olivia didn't mean anything by it." Sloane stared at her, feeling something shift inside. "No, Mum. You didn't mean anything by it. That's the difference." Her mother blinked, caught off guard. "Excuse me." Sloane's voice steadied, low but firm. "You've been making excuses for her my entire life. Every insult, every slight, every time she hurt me. You told me to let it go." The older woman's jaw tightened. "Because I wanted peace." "No," Sloane said softly. "You wanted silence." For the first time, Mrs. Carter's confidence faltered. The air between them grew still. From the ballroom, the muffled sound of music played on, oblivious to the quiet war unfolding in the hallway. Mrs. Carter took a step closer, her voice lowering. "You're twisting things, Sloane. You've always been so sensitive." Sloane's lips parted, her breath shaky. "You think it's sensitivity to want to be treated like family?" Her mother's expression hardened, the mask of calm slipping for just a second. "Olivia has worked very hard for this day. Don't ruin it with your feelings." Sloane let out a breathless laugh, the kind that sounded more like heartbreak than humor. "Don't worry, Mom," she said. "I've learned my feelings don't count here anyway." Mrs. Carter blinked, speechless for the first time. Sloane felt a strange calm settle over her, like the eye of a storm. She wasn't shouting. She wasn't crying. She was done. "I'm going home," she said quietly. "You can tell Olivia I said congratulations." Her mother's eyes widened. "Sloane, wait. Don't make a scene." Sloane smiled faintly, but her eyes carried years of quiet pain. "Don't worry," she said. "No one ever notices when I leave." With that, she turned and walked away, her footsteps echoing softly down the hallway. Behind her, the laughter from the ballroom swelled again, swallowing her absence like she had never been there at all. Sloane walked out into the night air, the chill of Chicago wrapping around her like a quiet reminder that she was finally free from pretending. The courtyard was empty except for the faint glow of string lights swaying above. She took a deep breath, letting the cold cut through the heat of her frustration. Her car was parked just across the lot, but she didn't move. For the first time, she wanted to sit in that stillness and let the truth sink in. Her family had made their choice. And maybe for the first time she was ready to make hers too. She leaned against a stone pillar and looked back through the glass doors. Inside, Olivia glided across the floor in her perfect white gown, smiling as if the world adored her. Sloane's mother hovered near the stage, fussing over every detail, while her father laughed too loudly at something one of the guests said. They all looked so content, so proud of the image they had built. Sloane whispered to herself, "That's not my world anymore." Her words came out calm, steady like a promise. It wasn't anger that burned in her chest anymore. It was clarity. A familiar voice interrupted her thoughts. "You're really leaving?" Daniel stood a few feet away, hands in his pockets, watching her with quiet concern. Sloane managed a half-smile. "Someone has to," she said softly. He stepped closer. "You don't have to do it alone, you know." Sloane raised a brow. "You offering to run away with me?" Daniel chuckled, shaking his head. "Not unless there's coffee involved. I just hate seeing you walk away like this." She glanced at him, touched by the sincerity in his tone. "I've spent years staying for people who never cared I was there," she said. "It's time I leave for myself." Daniel nodded slowly, understanding what she meant. "You always were braver than you thought," he said. Sloane smiled faintly. Brave or tired, hard to tell the difference sometimes. He laughed softly, then reached into his jacket pocket. "Here," he said, handing her a small card. "My number. Just in case you want someone to talk to when the silence feels heavy." Sloane looked at it for a moment, then tucked it into her clutch. "Thank you," she said sincerely. "But I think silence is exactly what I need right now." Daniel nodded. "Then I hope it brings you peace." The wind picked up, brushing against her dress. For a moment, Sloane closed her eyes and let the sound of the city fill her ears. Cars humming in the distance, laughter spilling faintly from the ballroom, the soft rustle of trees. It was strange how peaceful everything felt now that she'd stopped fighting to be seen. She wasn't angry anymore. She was simply done. She turned back toward the building one last time, her reflection faint in the glass doors. For years, she had been the shadow in her own family's story. Tonight she chose to step out of it. As she reached her car, her phone buzzed. A text from her mother flashed across the screen. "Where did you go? Please don't cause trouble tonight." Sloane stared at the words for a moment, her thumb hovering over the keyboard. She typed, "Don't worry, Mom. I'm not causing trouble. I'm avoiding it." Then she pressed send and slipped the phone into her bag. The irony made her smile. After everything, her mother still thought peace meant silence. Sloane had finally learned that sometimes peace meant walking away. She drove home with the radio off, the city lights flickering past her window like fading stars. Her thoughts drifted through old memories. Birthdays where Olivia got the biggest slice of cake, family dinners where her voice was talked over, holidays where her achievements were politely ignored. It was a quiet pattern of exclusion she had grown numb to, until tonight forced her to see it clearly. For the first time, she wasn't crying about it. She was simply done pretending it didn't hurt. When Sloane reached her apartment, the clock read nearly midnight. She kicked off her heels and stood in the center of her small living room, surrounded by stillness. The space wasn't grand like her parents' house, but it was hers. Every picture on the wall, every blanket on the couch. She poured herself a glass of water and sat down, staring at the city skyline glowing outside her window. For the first time, she realized she didn't need to prove her worth to anyone. The quiet was uncomfortable at first, but slowly, it began to feel like freedom. Her phone buzzed again, this time with a message from Olivia. "I hope you're happy. You ruined Mom's mood tonight." Sloane read the text, exhaled, and placed the phone face down on the table. There was a time when those words would have cut deep, when she would have stayed up all night replaying them in her head. But not tonight. Tonight she had nothing left to prove. She whispered softly, "You can't ruin what was never real," and took another sip of water, the city lights reflecting in her eyes like quiet stars. An hour later, as Sloane prepared for bed, her phone rang again. This time, her father's name appeared on the screen. She hesitated before answering. "Hey, Dad," she said, her tone calm but distant. "Sweetheart," his voice sounded uneasy. "Your mother's worried. You left so suddenly." Sloane smiled faintly. "I didn't leave suddenly, Dad. I just left when I realized I wasn't welcome." There was a long silence on the other end. "You know we love you," he said softly. Sloane's eyes welled, but her voice stayed steady. "I know you think you do. But love doesn't feel like that, Dad. Not anymore." She ended the call, set the phone down, and finally allowed herself to breathe. The next morning, sunlight streamed through Sloane's curtains, casting a golden glow across her small apartment. She sat at her kitchen table, a cup of coffee cooling in her hands, scrolling through her phone in silence. Missed calls. Unread messages. Most from her mother, some from Olivia. She didn't open any of them. For once, she didn't feel the familiar pull to explain herself, to make peace, to fix what she didn't break. She stared out the window and whispered, "Let them sit with it." The words felt foreign at first, but they fit perfectly. Later that afternoon, she decided to take a walk. The city was alive with sound. Cars honking, people laughing, the faint buzz of traffic lights switching colors. For years, Sloane had felt small in a world that kept moving without her. But today, as she walked past busy cafes and parks filled with strangers, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Possibility. No one here cared about who she was in her family, or what seat she didn't get at a wedding. Out here, she was just a woman rebuilding herself, one quiet step at a time. Halfway down the block, her phone buzzed again. Another message from her mother. "Please call me. We need to talk." Sloane stared at it for a long moment before typing back a single reply. "There's nothing left to talk about." She pressed send, then tucked her phone away, her hands trembling slightly, but not from fear. It was from release. For the first time in her life, she was setting a boundary and keeping it. It hurt, yes, but it also felt like standing up straight after years of bending. That evening, Daniel called. His voice was calm, steady, like someone who'd been waiting all day to check in. "You okay?" he asked. Sloane smiled faintly. "For once, yeah. I think I actually am." He hesitated. "Your mom called me earlier," he admitted. "She wanted to know if you were safe." Sloane chuckled softly. "Safe from what?" "The truth." There was a brief pause before Daniel said quietly, "You really shook them last night." Sloane leaned back in her chair, her voice even. "Good. Maybe it's time they saw me clearly." Daniel exhaled through the phone. "I know it's not easy walking away from family." "It's not," Sloane admitted. "But sometimes staying hurts more than leaving." She heard him hum in agreement. "You sound different," he said. "Like you're lighter." Sloane smiled. "I guess letting go will do that." They talked for another 10 minutes, about ordinary things, movies, work, the weather, before saying goodnight. When the call ended, Sloane sat in silence, realizing that peace didn't always come with closure. Sometimes it came with finally choosing yourself. The next day brought rain, soft and steady. Sloane spent the morning cleaning her apartment, music playing low in the background. Every small action felt grounding. Folding laundry, rearranging books, wiping the counter. It was strange how quiet healing could look. She wasn't crying or angry. She was simply living. At noon, her phone buzzed again, but this time it wasn't family. It was Daniel, coffee. My treat. Sloane smiled, staring at the message for a moment before replying. Sure. But only if there's chocolate cake. They met at a cozy cafe near downtown. Daniel was already seated by the window when Sloane walked in, the rain tapping lightly against the glass. You look better, he said, smiling. I feel better, she replied, sliding into the seat across from him. The smell of roasted coffee beans and cinnamon filled the air. For the first time in days, Sloane laughed, really laughed. They talked for hours, not about her family, but about life, dreams, and all the little things she had forgotten to care about. When she finally checked the time, evening had settled quietly outside. As they walked out of the cafe, the rain had stopped. The streets shimmered under the glow of streetlights, and the world smelled fresh again. Daniel turned to her, hands in his pockets. You ever think you'll forgive them? He asked gently. Sloane thought for a moment before answering. Forgiveness doesn't mean letting them back in, she said. It just means I'm not carrying their weight anymore. Daniel nodded, his eyes soft. That's strength. Sloane smiled. No, it's survival. That night, back in her apartment, Sloane sat by the window with a blanket around her shoulders. She watched the city lights blink across the skyline, each one reminding her of how vast the world truly was. Her phone sat on the table beside her, buzzing quietly again with messages she didn't read. She no longer needed their approval to feel whole. The silence that once scared her now felt like company. This is peace, she whispered to herself. Not perfect, but mine. A week passed. The world moved on. Olivia posted new wedding photos online. Perfect smiles, perfect poses, a perfect family portrait that didn't include her. Sloane saw it once before closing the app and never looking again. Her mother sent another message, just 3 words. I miss you. Sloane read it, then smiled sadly. She typed a reply she never sent. You miss control, not me. Instead, she put the phone down, stepped out onto her balcony, and let the wind brush against her face. For the first time in her life, Sloane didn't feel forgotten, she felt free. A few evenings later, Sloane received an unexpected call. The name on the screen made her pause, Mr. Carter. Her father rarely called on his own. She hesitated before answering. Hi, Dad, she said softly. His voice came through, slow and uncertain. Sloane, I just wanted to say I'm sorry. The words caught her off guard. For what? She asked carefully. There was a pause before he continued. For not standing up for you sooner. Your mother and sister. They've always been louder than me. But last week when you left, the house felt different. Quiet in a way that didn't feel right. Sloane closed her eyes, tears threatening. That's because I stopped filling the silence for them, she whispered. Her father sighed. I know I failed you, sweetheart. I should have protected you. Sloane's throat tightened. You can't fix what's already done, Dad, she said gently. But thank you for saying it. He didn't argue. Your mother's been crying, he added quietly. Sloane gave a small, sad smile. Mom's not crying because she lost me. She's crying because she finally realizes she can't control me anymore. Her father said nothing, only breathed heavily on the line. After a long silence, Sloane spoke again. I'm not angry anymore. But I'm not coming back to the same role I played. I can't. When the call ended, Sloane sat still for a long moment, her heart full but steady. She knew forgiveness wasn't about pretending nothing happened. It was about choosing peace over pain. The rain began again outside, tapping gently on her window. She stood and pulled the curtains slightly open, watching droplets chase each other down the glass. Somewhere deep down, she knew her father's apology wouldn't fix everything. But it was a start. And sometimes a start was enough. The next morning, Sloane woke early and brewed her favorite coffee. The air felt lighter, her home warmer. She walked to her bookshelf and picked up an old family photo, one from Christmas years ago. In it, Olivia stood in the center, glowing, while Sloane hovered near the edge of the frame. She studied her younger self, the quiet girl who tried so hard to belong, and whispered, "You did your best." Then she smiled and set the photo down, not out of anger but acceptance. That chapter was over. The next one, she realized, was hers to write alone. That evening she stepped out onto her balcony, the city stretching endlessly before her. Alive, untamed and waiting. The wind brushed through her hair as the lights flickered below. For the first time, she didn't feel small in the world. She felt present, rooted, whole. She looked up at the sky and whispered, "I choose peace." The words weren't dramatic. They were quiet and real. Sloane Carter no longer needed a family table to feel seen. She had built her own. And as the night deepened around her, she smiled to herself, finally free. Not from them but from needing them.